Welcome back, everybody, to the Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I'd like to introduce Harmony Woodington. She has a unique history in the health industry. She has 15 years of experience in education, creating a holistic picture of health and wellness. Her background is in skin therapy, clinical hypnotherapy, and energy healing. She currently has a practice as a personal expansion specialist, supporting clients own their power and live their life's purpose. She has developed her own healing program she takes clients through, and she's also a best-selling published author. Her passion is to flood the earth with love and teach people about proactive health in all aspects. Welcome to a Little Less Fear podcast, Harmony. So awesome to have you and your beautiful bird. Where's your birdie? There he is. I'm sorry. And your awesome bird. I love it. So tell us about what's your bird's name again?
Rukia.
Rukia. Welcome to a Little Less Fear podcast, Rukia and Harmony. So tell us about your journey and what brought you to where you currently are at today.
So the first thing that I want to say when I'm telling this story is that it's really important for everyone to understand that I share my story from a place of full acceptance, knowing that everything that I experienced in my life has helped me to become who I'm meant to be. I firmly believe that I chose the people and the experiences that I had growing up to inform me and to create awareness of what it was that I was meant to do on this planet in this life. So I was born to a father who was born in Wales post Second World War, which was a very depressed state because Southern Wales, I don't know if you're aware of this, was bombed pretty heavily. No, and it was actually rebuilt. Yeah. So if you go to Southern Wales, on one side, there will be a fortress castle. On the other side, there's a mall. It's really weird.
Wow, time machine.
Yeah, it's really phenomenal. I was really shocked when I went to my dad's hometown and experienced what it was like. And I understand why it was such a difficult place to grow in. Because the fathers who came home from the war were dealing with PTSD in a time when that wasn't recognized, and their villages were bombed to oblivion, and so they were rebuilding. And I can only imagine how difficult for the children it would have been. And everyone was told to hush because loose lips sink ships, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So nobody talked. And so they were raised in a generation where they weren't allowed to talk about anything. There was a very strong hangover of silence from the Second World War because it was life or death. As we know, it was a massive war that really changed the whole world. It affected the whole world. That's why they call it a world war.
Sure.
So my father, growing up in that environment, was raised with 5 other siblings who all experience extreme psychosis coming out of that. My dad being depressed and, going through bouts of suicidal thoughts and attempting it multiple times. Sadly, he's still with us today, but it was very difficult because of his depression. He was a ghost of a father. He wasn't really present in my life. And he didn't strive for what he was truly capable of being or becoming. So he wasn't a good provider as well, which created a lot of insecurity for me as a child, not having a present father and having one that just didn't create a stable home. Right.
Right.
And my mother, that's a whole other thing. So she was raised in Eastern Canada, having a day life, which is normal, but her nightlife was in the basement. In the satanic cult.
Oh, wow.
So she had a day life and a night life and was tired all the time and couldn't remember why, because what was going on was so extreme that it was actually being stored in the back of her mind and she couldn't even remember it. And the memories didn't surface until I was about 11 years old, and they went to marriage counseling, and the psychologist actually accidentally surfaced the trauma, and then crap hit the fan from that point on. And so that was really fun for me because I had a normal mother until the memories surfaced. And then she went completely sideways on me and stopped mothering, stopped cleaning the house, became a complete shut-in. And I had to step up and become the one who did the budgeting and the cooking and the cleaning and take care of my siblings and everything. And I was trying to be a counselor for my mother because at the time they didn't understand multiple personality disorder. And so I was in my mother's room helping her process traumatic memories and integrate personalities at 11 years old. What was I doing?
loaded job for anybody, let alone a kid. I mean, you're basically being her mother. Wow.
I was just trying to get my mom back. And I thought if I could help
Oh,
her to process her
yeah.
trauma, I could get my mom back,
Oh
right?
man, yeah.
But it was a beautiful, like when you think about it, preface for what it is that I'm doing today, because I'm aware of extreme psychosis and how it affects families and incapacitates people. And so that awareness is so beautiful and perfect the way that it is. My parents didn't have the
So true.
capacity to unconditionally love me and to provide what I needed as a child. And that lack of love and the extreme psychosis that I was bathing in. And then on top of that, being raised in an extreme fundamentalist religion that dictated who I was, how I was going to live my life, who I was going to become. And my whole life was mapped out for me verbatim, really put me in a place where eventually, when I went out on my own, I just had no self-worth, and I didn't strive for greatness because I didn't believe I was worthy of it.
Right. Oh
Right.
wow. Yeah.
And I ended up, like attracts like. So I ended up attracting a career in skin therapy. And so I was working in spas, surrounded by a lot of people who were extremely self-loathing. I was surrounded by like-minded people that were struggling and were trying to fix everything from an external standpoint, having this deep emptiness and insecurity, just like I had. And bathing in it was actually what created the awareness and the desire to want to be and do more to help others. But I was not in a good place myself to help anyone. And also having low self-worth was paralyzed by fear to take risk to create something, because I was a single mother with a 13-year-old child at home that I had to provide for, and nobody to support me. Because when I walked away from my family to become my own person, my mother shunned me and wasn't talking to me anymore. So I was alone. Right. So that was
How did you
incredibly
decide
difficult.
to do that?
I just always knew that I was meant for more. And I've always been an outlier in every aspect of my life. I just never felt like I fit in with the people that I was with the church, with just anything. I just always knew in my heart of hearts that I was meant to be and do something amazing. And I didn't know what that looked like. But obviously, my core self drove me towards this. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Despite my
Yes.
insecurities and all of the rest of that.
Right.
And so this deep-seated desire called out to the universe, and the universe said, all right, I got your back.
Yeah.
And October 18th, 2012, I was in a massive 4-car accident,
Whoa.
and I didn't make it home to my baby that night.
Oof.
And he got a phone call from the cops, and my car was totaled. And I ended up with a severe concussion amongst other injuries that took me out of my career path. And I was forced into my room, into darkness, where there was no sound, no stimulation, because the pain was just so extreme. And in that darkness, I was able to then focus on how this happened for me. And I just kept asking myself that question. And I provided a way for my son and I to keep a roof over our heads. And I started my own business. I ended up starting a new relationship with someone. My sister left her husband and moved in with me, and I needed to provide for and support her. So we moved into a bigger house, and my friends scattered, and I ended up finding new ones. My whole life completely and totally shifted. And then one day I'm sitting there drinking a cup of tea, and I went, oh my gosh, the universe pushed me off the cliff, and I just needed a whole life makeover. Okay, I got this.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
So that was what helped me to wake up to my potential, to my brilliance, to my strength, because I was able to show myself what I was capable of when I was alone and I was knocked down so hard. I don't even know how I did it to this day. It was unbelievable, the strength. And suffering from a severe concussion, losing my mind, now being raised, being pretty, and everybody telling me how pretty I was. Nobody ever tested my capacity when it came to my intelligence. It was just assumed that I was going to be a C student and I had average intelligence, because brilliance and beauty don't exist in one human. Obviously, that just doesn't happen. So I didn't know how brilliant I was until I got my mind back. And when I did, that was when I actually tested it to its capacity, and not only surprised everyone else, but I shocked the crap out of myself.
How'd you
You
do
know what
that?
I mean?
How'd you shock yourself?
So exactly. And so the other massive catalyst that really changed everything for me was 2015, February 6th. I was in the kitchen with my partner who I loved and adored. And within 5 minutes, both of us received phone calls about our fathers being in the hospital. My dad
What?
attempted suicide,
Oh, wow.
and my man's father was diagnosed with liver cancer and was in the hospital in Toronto. And
Wow.
both of us looked at each other and went, "Are you kidding me right now? You couldn't make this up. Like, how is this even?
Yeah, right.
I don't even know how to deal with this." We were both in shock. So I had to look after my dad and have him put in a facility where he could be supported and recover and be nurtured. And there were things that he said to me as I was setting him up that ripped me out of the faith that I'd been following for 33 years of my life. And all of a sudden I was having a massive existential crisis and dealing with everything else that we were dealing with. So then we flew to Toronto and then were there for about a week or so, visiting the family and visiting with his father, who was hooked up to all the machines in ICU. And it was the most terrifying visual thing I've ever walked in on. It was terrifying, but it made me realize how fragile life is,
Yes.
because in an instant, something can come and completely flip your life upside down, like as if I didn't get that wake up call in the car accident. But
Right, right.
right.
Wow. Sheesh. Yeah.
So then I ended up walking a journey to really create resolution for myself from a physiological, not a physiological, sorry, a psychological standpoint. So I had walked the path to heal physically from the concussion and the other injuries that I dealt with. Well, then I needed to start to actually heal emotionally and psychologically and spiritually. Oh my gosh, spiritually, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I ended up not finding resolution in the traditional model. When I went to actually go and talk to psychologists, I really found that they weren't honoring the existential crisis that I was going through. And so I ended up kind of walking outside of the traditional model to look for support, and ended up kind of going on a spiritual journey and discovered, in a meditation circle, the woman who was leading it was a clinical hypnotherapist. And she took us on a guided visualization that actually took me from feeling like I was completely powerless to somehow knowing that I had everything within me and it was going to be okay.
And you don't remember it?
I I went into such a deep state of hypnosis. I have no idea what she said.
Oh, wow.
I go really deep because I'm a phys. I have no idea. I just knew I came out. I went in one state, I came out in a completely different state.
That's
And I
amazing.
realized, right?
Yeah.
I realized that some part of me had been tapped into that I didn't have access to, that I needed to know more about. Right? There was a shift and and I'm inquisitive, so I needed to know the answer. And that was when I ended up realizing that I needed to learn clinical hypnotherapy, because I don't just want to experience it, I want to become it because I'm
Yeah,
passionate, right?
totally.
So I became a clinical hypnotherapist. And
Yeah.
as I was practicing that, that was when the awareness of energy and how energy gets trapped in our energy body became very apparent to me. I had a particular client in a state of hypnosis, and she was 27 years old. And I took her back to see herself at about 7 years old. And she was looking at that 7-year-old and saying some pretty hateful things.
Oh, man.
And there was some really strong trauma that she had going on. And I could feel it in my own solar plexus. And it was so powerful, it brought me to
Wow.
tears. And I was so powerless in the moment to do anything. I didn't know how to engage. I could feel the energy, but I didn't know how to engage. And in that powerless moment created a powerful passion to want to learn how to teach my clients to tap into, access, and release that energy, because that trauma,
Yeah.
it motivates, it drives, it paralyzes, right?
Right.
And it
Right.
causes and wreaks havoc. So I first certified in pranic healing, and then I got into Dr. Bradley Nelson's emotion code, body code healing, which is founded in kinesiological testing to find trapped emotions in the body and release it. So it's very founded in science that goes back 60 years. It was developed by Dr. George Goodhart. And so there's a very solid foundation for that, which I think is more tangible, which allows people who don't understand the energetic world to kind of bridge the gap over into that, kind of having something
Mm.
tangible to hold on to. And so I certified in that. And what I ended up then creating was my own practice that really supported people understanding and learning the language of the mind and body. Because when you learn how the mental operating system works and how to update it to meet your current agenda or dreams, desires, whatever it is that you want to
Yeah.
create, and then you learn the language of the body and you honor that and release any energy that's no longer serving you, you then get holistic resolution. Because one without the other, you're still unresolved. You need holistic resolution. And once I mapped that out, I all of a sudden realized that I had something really, really powerful. And so I started working a program with clients that was about 3 months at its start. And over almost a decade of working with clients has become many workbooks, 7 steps, and almost a year for my clients to work through the program with me. And it is a beautiful, beautiful holistic process that takes a client from stuck, running loops and cycles that are pain and that are horrible, and they feel completely lost and they're in the bog of eternal stench and they can't see their way out, to really stepping into an understanding of why they're here on this planet, that they are a beautiful, powerful, divine being, that they have a life with a divine design that they created for themselves.
Why?
Able to discover what that is, love themselves, develop a beautiful, beautiful self-loving relationship with themselves, step into their power, and really, really step into a life that is based on their divine design, which makes their soul sing,
Wow.
which I just don't think there's anything more beautiful than that.
I love how you say that, based on their own divine design.
Divine design, yeah.
So, I have a question. How can you explain, or to people who are like listening for the first time, what a holistic resolution is? What does holistic mean to you? What does it mean to your clients, and what does it consist of?
Yeah, so what's really interesting is when we look at the allopathic model of medicine right now, essentially what it looks like is I have a relationship that's driving me insane and I can't stand, what's going on right now. And if you could just fix my partner, everything would be perfect. Right? Or I have a headache and I'm just going to take some drugs and I'm going to ignore it. So we exist in a world where we focus on what's going on in the moment. And in all reality, what's going on in the moment that's hurting us is a symptom. Right?
Mhm,
When you
right,
have a headache, it's actually because your brain is replaying something over and over and over and over and over and over again, and it won't stop. And what you actually need to do is make a decision. And when you make a decision, even if it's to not make a decision, you're saying your mind will stop doing this and it won't hurt so much. It's being
right.
overworked, or you're dehydrated. Maybe you just need some water. You know what I mean? So when you look at it from that standpoint, and you understand that there is a root cause for everything, and that what you're experiencing that's creating the pain that you're living in is just
Yeah.
a symptom. And
Wow.
instead of treating the symptom, getting to the root cause to create resolution is going to really what's going to give you that long-term resolution that you are truly seeking. Now, the other thing that I want to call out when we're talking about holistic, that means
Yes.
whole. You are a whole, multidimensional, powerful, divine being. You're not just a brain. You're
Right.
not just a heart, right?
Right.
You are a powerful divine being having a human existence. You are
Yes.
an energetic being. You are an emotional being. You are a psychological being. You are a physical being. You are all of these things. You are a sexual being.
Right.
If all of that is not honored, we have a problem. I was having a phone call with a potential client, and he was telling me, I've shut down every single aspect of my life and I'm just focusing on my business. And if I can get my business to thrive, then I can focus on everything else. But then he was telling me all the ways that he was having issues in his business because he had interpersonal issues. He couldn't create healthy relationships, and his programs were creating relationships with people in business that were exploding in his face. Right? And I'm like, honey, I just want you to understand that this stuff that you're ignoring is actually coming into your business and making a mess.
Yeah.
Everything that you do affects everything else. You can't pigeonhole yourself into one aspect of your life and think that the other things aren't affecting you.
Right.
You have to honor everything about yourself and create holistic change, which means looking at every aspect of yourself, honoring it, creating resolution on it, updating it, creating goals and expanding to really step into the fullness of who you are and who you want to
Yes.
be.
Yes.
I know you're like, hey.
Yeah, I do. I want to say amen. Yes. So, what's interesting though is how holistic is spelled HOLIS. But as you're saying this, when you said your whole aspects of your life, I thought it should be spelled WHOL, because that's what's going to make you whole, is if you actually take part in this holistic approach. That's part of what's going to make you whole.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that's really important is that I realized so much of the time, I actually had an interview with a psychologist, and she focuses on marriage, people who are married, and
Yeah.
she doesn't talk about sexuality.
Yeah. Right.
What? Isn't that a big part of marriage?
Sure is.
If that's not a topic of conversation when you're working with couples that are married, I'm just saying there's a big puzzle piece that's going to create a lot of happiness or misery.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that was something that I actually shied away from, being raised in a fundamentalist religion when I was first doing the work with my clients. And then I was actually knocked down for about a month with a really bad virus. And in that moment was when I realized that I needed to actually do the work to help my clients own their power. And the way that I was going to do that was actually teaching them how to reclaim their sexuality, because that is how the powers that be control us. I don't care who the powers that be are. Let's be real. It doesn't matter. The powers that be can have different names and be different groups and different people. But either way, our sexuality has been taken and controlled by many people for many generations.
Oh, yeah.
And it is our power center is in that sexuality. It is in a woman, the womb, right?
Yeah.
So, and in a man, it's in a different area, right? So the seeds that he creates in those beautiful little sacs, those are power centers. That life is being created there, right? And it is important to get in tune with that. And the woman to get in tune with the womb, her powerhouse. Right?
Yes.
And if we can get in tune with that and reclaim it and create a relationship with it, we then tap into and reclaim our power and can birth and create in all realms, in all realities. It's so powerful. And until I tapped into that aspect of the work, I don't believe that I was getting true resolution from my clients. I really don't. But now honoring that work and holding safe space for everyone of all genders, identifications, whatever it is that you come from, culture, it doesn't matter. Holding safe space for a person to talk freely, to reclaim their sexuality, and to step into their power, whatever it looks like for them, is one of the most beautiful puzzle pieces of the work that I could possibly do, because there are so few people that have a safe space to communicate in an unfiltered way about this stuff.
I agree with you, especially I grew up Catholic, and I grew up where it was just wrong I was a lesbian, identified before I was transgendered, and it was just, I went through some awful discrimination left and right. And it really wasn't until like I found my current relationship where sexuality was okay, that I really felt more in alignment with everything else in life that I was doing, is because I was really missing that self-acceptance as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because you weren't being accepted for who you were. And when you don't fit in and you haven't really truly identified and stepped into the fullness of yourself, it's hard to accept yourself because you're denying yourself with everyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Very powerful stuff. So from what happened after clinical hypnotherapy, you know what? When I read your biography, and I was like, you know what? I love Dolores Cannon. I'm sure you know who Dolores Cannon is. Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So, and she's really been one of the biggest reasons why I'd want to get into hypnotherapy. And I see that how long did you do hypnotherapy for?
I've been in practice since 2015.
So at least 5 years you've been doing it. So what's your biggest takeaway? What have you learned the most about hypnotherapy and healing modalities and the holistic approach and all of that? I mean, what have you learned the most?
You know, what's really funny is I think a lot of hypnotherapists that do the work, they practice hypnosis and they kind of stay in that pigeonhole.
Uh-huh.
And what I've done and what my teachings turned into was actually more using the principles of hypnotherapy And instead of keeping the power for myself, handing it over to my clients.
How do you
I
do that?
actually, I know you're like, ooh, this is cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
So what I do is I actually teach my clients how their mental operating system works. I teach them how to listen to their own internal dialogue. And because I can tap into my client's mind with their permission always, I help them to actually access and tap into their own programs. And I will assist them in doing so if they're not able to do it. And then I help them to update those programs to serve the agenda that they have right now. So they are tapping into their own power. So I'm not going in there and reframing things for you. And then you have to keep coming back to me to do that. Because I think as a hypnotherapist, if you're doing that, in my mind, it's unethical because I'm keeping the power. But if I'm honoring that we're all divine beings and that we're walking this human path.
Yeah, you're giving their power back to them.
Exactly. Right. So I'm handing them their power and holding their hand, being their unconditionally loving cheerleader to practice owning that power. So by the time they graduate from my program, they don't need me to do this for them anymore. I'm not here to create a relationship for the rest of my life with you being dependent on me.
Right.
I want you to step into your power being the divine being that you are. And when you graduate, you and I are best friends for the rest of our lives. Right? Which is what all of my clients are. They call me to update me, not with problems, but to tell me how great they're doing. That's how it should be.
Yes,
right?
That is how it should be. Absolutely.
So in my mind, there's probably going to be people that are going to be against me saying this. Hypnosis is really slow. It's really slow.
Oh, wow.
A hypnosis session can take an hour. And I'm like, I'm sorry, there's a way faster way to do that. Because what they're doing is they're updating programs, right? You're coming to me and going, I have a program that's causing this problem. Can you update it for me? They take the person into the brainwave theta, they shift the program and then take them out of it. I don't need to get you into theta to update that program. There's actually a much faster way to go about it. And actually, I'd like you to do it because I want you to have the power. So I'm taking the fundamental principles and expediting it, basically.
Could you give an example on how you expedite it, or is that a secret, or is that for your patients or your clients to only to know?
So what's really interesting is if you, let's just take a look at the program I'm Not Enough, because a lot of people have that running program, right? Mm-hmm. I know I did, and I had to overcome it. Now, what's really interesting is a lot of people will create an updated thought process that I am enough. Right? That's a running affirmation that a lot of people say. Okay, well, I'm just going to let you know right now that this affirmation, I am enough, is horrible. It is useless. Why? Because the mind is going to finish that. I'm enough for another POS car. I'm enough for another horrible abusive partner. I'm enough for another horrible job where I get treated like crap. Right? Mm-hmm. Your brain finishes the sentence, and this is what we don't realize, and this is why you need me.
Wow. Yeah.
We help you to create actual proper programs that are complete and effective and so high vibration that your mind can't even come up with it.
Wow.
Because the program that you actually need to shift from I am enough to something that's high vibration and you owning your power looks like I am a powerful divine being and I am love.
Oh man, I gotta write that down.
Right? When you own that you are love, it means you don't need to seek love from an external source anymore because you are what you've been seeking this whole time and you just need to own it. Now, most people's brains from a limited state are not going to come up with that of their own volition because the limited state and the fear is going to stop the brain from accessing that, right? So you can access the program, but I'm here to then push you beyond what your brain is actually going to allow you to access to a very high vibration, like divine truth and affirmation. Okay. And then what I do is I get my clients to self-communicate through kinesiological testing to find out how many times they need to write this down and say it at night before it's anchored. Now, your capacity to anchor a program today is going to be different than it is from a week now because your brain from day to day has so many different things that it has to deal with. You
Yeah.
might be really stressed and overwhelmed today, but a week from now, you're going to be in a much more rested state and you can anchor something faster. So the idea that it takes 21 days to anchor something or to create a habit is just a blanket statement. And it's actually not true for everyone on the planet. How long
Right.
it's going to take you to anchor something is unique to you. So I get you to self-communicate. And then you're going to be like, oh, so I need to repeat this every night before I go to sleep, bypass the critical mind to anchor this 8 days. Okay, cool. Beans, done. Next. That's how I do it.
And when you get those like 8 days, is that the actual client telling you that in their hypnotic state where their higher self already knows how long it's going to take? Or is that a number that you give them? Or
No, they're not in hypnosis doing this. They're
oh, okay.
it's like
Oh,
you and
wow.
me talking. There's no
Oh, dang.
hypnosis involved. So they're using kinesiological testing to actually self-communicate to get that number as to what their capacity is right now.
What is kinesiology testing?
So naturopaths, chiropractors, kinesiologists who work in rehabilitation. So there's a lot of practitioners that help people to rehabilitate from injury and stuff, and they're called kinesiologists.
Yes.
What they're doing is they're communicating with the body, finding weakness and strength within our muscular structure. And Dr. George Goodhart in 1960 understood through a client that he was working on that there was something going on that he couldn't understand, because he went and did some work with a client and he was assessing the client and he assessed that there was a point of weakness. Now he went away and came back and there was a shift, and all of a sudden that area was strong and he hadn't physiologically adjusted anything. So he was like, what just happened? Big question mark.
Yeah.
And he needed to figure out the answer. And so as a result, this actually led him to understand that we can be influenced by the energy of something, and it can shift our molecular strength without physical manipulation, right? And this is what quantum physics proves, obviously, that we are vibrating energy and we are influenced by the vibration of something. It has been scientifically proven that when we swear, when we use particularly the F word, our muscle strength goes up 5%. What? How does that work? Right? I don't even know. It's so crazy. So basically what Dr. Bradley Nelson did was utilize this principle to understand that when we speak a truth, we are high vibration, we actually get stronger. And when we speak a lie, or we say something that's lower vibration, or we're exposed to something that's high vibration, we're stronger. When we're exposed to something low vibration, it weakens us. Right. So we can actually measure that muscle strength using different techniques. And you can self-communicate through the different methods to actually measure that minute muscular strength.
So how does cursing though, or how does that?
What's really interesting about cursing is it's actually, when we curse, it actually originates in the lizard mind, in a different part of our mind. And it's very fascinating because it does, when you think about it, when you say particular words, it feels more powerful, right?
Yeah,
it creates a release of emotion. And so it does, when you use that, it does create a power surge. And it does make you stronger. Actually, this would be really cool for all of you guys to test out who's listening this. When you go to work out next time, I want you to say the word of something that you feel really, really powerful about. So when I'm working out and I'm trying to get the last few reps in, I will say, I love purple, I love purple, I love purple, because it's my favorite color. And I feel really passionate about it. And I can rep harder and finish stronger when I actually voice that thing, because it raises my vibration. It makes me stronger.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, wow, this is all so fascinating. I'm just so blessed that you're sharing all this information. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I understand that through this practice of hypnotherapy and the pranic healing and all the stuff that you've done to get you to where you're at right now with your clients, that you've also created your own modality. Is that what you mean by creating your own modality? Kind of like getting through the shortcuts, and instead of like an hour long, you've kind of just cut through the chase and get to the nitty gritty. Is that what you mean by like creating your own modality, or what do you?
So I've just naturally, ever since I was young, just had a natural like radar for things that are limiting and slow. You know what I mean? And I'm always like, there's a faster way to get that done. There's an easier way to do that. No, that's way too limiting. We're going to do this a better way. And so and I didn't realize until I was an adult, essentially, that I just have this mind that naturally wants to expedite things. Right. And so when I learned hypnotherapy and when I learned energy healing and everything, I realized that a lot of what was being taught was kind of, in my mind, slow. And there was a way to expedite things and get resolution for my clients holistically, significantly faster. So I would say that I used hypnotherapy and energy healing and everything that I basically learned educationally as a launching pad to teach, or a foundation to then create the program that I take my clients through, that is rooted in those principles, but also rooted in 43 years of life experience. Right.
Yeah.
And what it was that created resolution for me on my healing journey, what it is that I've discovered that's created resolution for my clients, because over the 8 years that I've been practicing, as my clients have come to me with problems, I have created resolution for them and then said, I think this is a thing for a bunch of people. I'm gonna put this in the program. Right.
Yeah.
So as I've been practicing, my program has been created looking for resolution for my clients, looking for more effective resolution, giving them the fundamental tools that they need to effectively invest in themselves in the program to create success faster and better. You know what I mean? So that's kind of always been my driving factor. So yes, I've got these fundamental things, but really the driving factor is, how can I more effectively get resolution for my clients? I am always in service of my clients. From the second you become a client, I am now in your service 24/7. I am energetically aware of you, and I am in service to you 24/7 until we wrap a bow around it. It's just the way that I play. My clients actually get me on demand. So they don't just work with me in session if they're triggered, because you're going to get triggered on your own time living your life. When you're in session, everything's peaceful and we're just doing the work and nothing in the outside world is exposed, to you, and you're not getting triggered. But you go out into the outside world and something happens and you're triggered. What do you do? Right? Where do you turn? Well, I tell my clients to turn to me. So I get them to send me a text message. And if I can get on the phone with them now and help them get resolution, I do. If I can't, I give them a time and they will get that resolution within that day. So I serve my clients like when they need me and in session time, and I am energetically connected to them once we form that connection, and I'm aware of them 24/7. So even if they don't say something to me, I'll text them and go, I can feel something's going on. What's up with you? And they'll be like, how? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Tell me what's going on.
Wow, that's incredible, Harmony. This has been an incredible interview. I'm just really blessed to have met you. Hey, Harmony, if you could go back to a time in your childhood when you were struggling the most and you were in your darkest space, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
It's so beautiful to look back in, the state that I'm in now, with all of the awareness and peace and everything that I have, seeing how my path was so perfect, turning me into who I am. And what I would tell that young woman really is, stay the path and know that you have a powerful purpose, and everything that you're experiencing is perfect the way that it is. I know it's not fun, but you're learning things, you're creating awareness that one day you will get resolution on, and you will step into your power, and you're going to do such amazing things. So just keep your eyes open for the lessons. And when you have the ability and the time and the space and you feel called to heal, run into it with ferocity, because what you're going to do is going to be phenomenal.
Wow, Harmony, geez. That's amazing. Well, you know what? I'm just really grateful to have met you, and you've inspired me an incredible deal. I really, I'm gonna definitely find ways to. Hey, can people hypnotize themselves and do their own healing, or does somebody have to do it for them?
You can absolutely do self-hypnosis for sure. There's no two ways about it. I have guided visualizations on my website that I have for sale, and you can look them up on YouTube for free. I listen to guided visualizations all the time, and I'll fall asleep listening to solfeggio frequencies, which are different frequencies that affect your vibration and state. So if you're feeling really low vibration, you can listen to certain solfeggio frequencies that will raise
Well,
your
what's the difference between solfeggio? How do you even spell that?
Solfeggio.
So what's the difference between solfeggio frequency and Hertz frequencies?
It's exactly the same thing.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
they just call it solfeggio frequencies, but it's
All right.
10 different hertz. Exactly.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So really, in all reality, anything that you do and you listen to that puts you into theta, that's self-hypnosis. So you could just put something onto YouTube, whether it's beautiful music, a certain hertz, or a guided visualization or something like that, and just close your eyes and go into state, and you're taking on suggestions.
That's amazing. Harmony, how can our viewers or watchers and our listeners find you and be one of your clients if they need to, or do one of these guided imagery meditations?
The first thing that I would say is I want only the people who are willing to say yes to themselves to follow through with this. Because that's the thing, is I'm not here to do the work for you. I'm here with unconditional love to walk you through a path as your guide and your cheerleader, but you need to show up and do the work. You need to say yes to you. There is nobody who can rescue you. You have to rescue you, because if anyone tries to rescue you because you're meant to learn the lessons, you have soul contracts, you will fight it and break yourself free so that you can go back and learn those lessons. So when you are ready to say yes to you and do the work, please pursue me. If you're not, this isn't going to work out, because I'm not here to hand you a magic pill. It's not going to work this way. This is fun work, and I am super fun to play with, but it is, it is work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no two ways about it. That being said, it's going to be fun. We're going to expedite this, and it's going to be holistic, and you're going to be a whole new person when we're done. And some of my clients even look different when I'm done with them. It's phenomenal how physiologically they'll change, because energetically everything about them changes. They end up looking different. But what's really important that I want you to understand is, if you are in a place where you are crying at night for resolution and change, to God, to the universe, to source, I am here to support you shifting that. And if you want to do that, how you can do that is just harmonywoodington.com. Super simple. And you can book a free soul connection with me. I call it a soul connection because that's what we're doing. We are uniting and connecting souls. You are telling me your story and your heart's and soul's desire. And I am here to expose my soul with unconditional love to you, to see if we're in alignment. And if that is the case, then we're going to have fun and we're going to play together.
That's amazing. Everybody, harmonywoodington.com. Get your soul connection, get this amazing connection, and be your highest self, your higher self, only if you're ready to really work on yourself with no denial.
Exactly.
Yes. Thanks so much for being on A Little Less Fear podcast. This has been an amazing connection. And now we are energetically connected for life. I'm really blessed to have met you. And I wish you, your entire all your loved ones, and your beautiful little feather buddy, all the love and all the wisdom light. Thank you so much for being on A Little Less Fear podcast.
Thank you.